Hello, everybody, and welcome to your post-daily news show for Tuesday, May the 3rd. I am John Pollock alongside Mr. Wai Ting.
Hey, John, how you doing?
I am doing well. Feels like 2003 today.
Maybe it should, because we'll be diving deep into 2003, in particular, New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Yes, we'll give a teaser for that at the end of the show of what is coming up tonight on Rewind Away. But we're going to dive into the news, and we're going to start things off with Roderick Strong, the lone Undisputed Era alumni in the NXT system. And Fightful Select reported on Monday, stating that it had learned that Roderick Strong has asked for his WWE release multiple times over the last several months. We're told that Strong has grown frustrated with many things over the past year within the company and had requested his release, which has been denied by WWE. And Roderick Strong, this Diamond Mine group has just been stripped since the group was put together. It just seems every couple of months they're losing another member without any explanation. The latest being Malcolm Bivens, who is gone. So we're now down to Roderick Strong, who I guess in theory you would see his role being more focused upon or needed with the Creeds and Ivy Nile. But I mean, I look at Roderick Strongway, and to me, if you want the prototype of someone that is a square peg in a round hole in this NXT 2.0 system, it's Roderick Strong. Like, I don't see this guy having a main roster run coming. And in NXT 2.0, I think that it's, to me, it's like it's not like he's in a prominent role either. But nonetheless, WWE is seeing him as a resource that they do not want to part ways with.
Well, I could see him moving up to the main roster as, another animal in a human body. If Butch needs a companion, if
what kind of animal? I don't even know why I'm asking this.
Maybe a nice pet iguana. I don't know, dude. But I mean, we do see it's not like like guys can't transition from NXT over to the main roster. We just saw Tommaso Ciampa make the move up. Jury's still out on what sort of transition that will be. But I mean, what Tommaso Ciampa has going for him is the fact that the man is an incredible talker, which unfortunately Roderick Strong will probably say tell you himself that he's not quite there. So when you couple
though that might be the role he has to inherit with the loss of Bivens, like this group does not have that spokesman, and Strong is kind of your only person that's going to talk on behalf of this group. So that's sort of the role he is in.
If the group even continues, John, I mean, to me, like Malcolm Bivens was such an integral part of the whole thing that I don't even know at this point if it's just strictly the Creeds and Ivy Nile, like how much of a stable you have. In either case, I think if you're Roderick Strong for months now, you've seen the writing on the wall. You're not there to be future world champion. Like the project of the group is the Creed brothers, and it's Ivy Nile, and you're just kind of there to play support. A figurehead to maybe do the bulk of the wrestling in some of these matches, but like ultimately, they're taking belts off of you. You're not going to, be somebody that they're going to have put over Braun Breaker. Whereas on the other show, you see your friends get together. They're feuding with, like they're doing stuff with the Elite. They're challenging for world championships. Your wife is over there. She's challenging for world championships. And where does that leave Roderick Strong in the WWE landscape?
It certainly does paint a picture. Like when you hear like a Bivens and a Dakota Kai that they were actively stating, I do not want to resign here, and the amount of talent that is left, like it really does feel like it's not just an isolated case here or there, that those that especially were part of the black and gold era, this is just not a company or a brand that they're getting much fulfillment from. Like this is not something a lot of, and if the idea is, well, we're sticking around so that you can kind of be the veteran presence to help them get along, I can see a lot of these performers saying, I'm still in my prime and I'm not ready to transition to that role at this young of an age. And it just doesn't seem to be an environment that they all want to be a part of. Like, there's just too many examples of people that don't want to be part of this system, and Roderick Strong being the latest to the list. And whatever his reasoning is, like, we don't know what those frustrations are, but, you know, this has coincided with a massive change to what NXT was 18 months ago.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, I mean, at least in the case of somebody like a Dakota Kai, we know that, you know, they've had looks. Same with Roderick Strong; they've had looks on the main roster through the dark matches, and I mean, for whatever reason, they aren't getting those calls up. And are you going to stick around on an NXT deal for this long of your career when you have nothing more to accomplish? You're in NXT really to as almost like a bit of a to develop your skills certainly, and almost as a bit of a trial so that eventually you can make that big money on the main roster. And I don't know what Roddy's deal is, but like I mean, if you're somebody like Dakota Kai, like you've already reached your ceiling.
Yeah. So we will see like what the future holds for Roderick Strong, but that's the case of a contract that you're going to be held to if you're a Mustafa Ali or a Roderick Strong, that it's very much one way. If WWE wants you, there's no getting out of that contract. If WWE wants out of that contract, well, it doesn't matter how many years are attached to it. They can relieve themselves of that obligation with a 30-day no compete, and they're free of that contract. It's very one-sided.
It's very true. Of course, one of the big concerns coming out of this potential exodus from the WWE is the fact that we know a man recently went to this company, returned to this company, and still has a lot of names, or at least one particular name on his list that he's yet to mark off, and of course that being Cody Rhodes. This infamous list pretty much has done everything here that he's listed out, but the last name still remains, a match that he has not had yet. Roderick Strong. Do we get Cody versus Roderick Strong before one of them leaves the company?
I'm going to say no. I'm going to say pretty definitive no on that one. I don't see Cody showing up at the Performance Center anytime soon, but hey, if he has that bucket list item,
someday.
Can't say impossible.
Someday. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Another talent news comes out of AEW, and several people had noticed that on the talent section of the website, when contracts have come due, we have seen names removed there. Joey Janela's deal recently expired. He came off of the site. Marco Stunt has followed. Jack Evans. Those were the ones we were aware of. And then it was noticed that Stu Grayson also removed from the site. And just as of about a half hour ago or so, Dave Meltzer reported that regarding Stu Grayson and AEW, his contract has expired and both sides could not agree to a money figure on a new deal. So in theory, that would end Stu Grayson's time with AEW unless they can come to some kind of a new agreement or like a per date sort of arrangement. But at least his name is off the site, and that would maybe quietly remove Stu Grayson from the Dark Order and AEW programming unless there is further development here.
Yeah, I mean, we knew that this was coming, with the influx of arguably bigger name talent, more coveted talent coming into this company. At some point, something was going to have to give, and it's going to be the lapse contracts of some of these, bottom card sort of stars. But I'll say, like, I think somebody like even like a Joey Janela in the context of AEW in general, probably expendable. I'm not going to say Stu Grayson isn't, but he was a part and is a part of, I would say, a very successful act in the Dark Order.
So was Marco Stunt.
Yeah, but they were already slowly transitioning him, and but you're right. Like,
here's the thing: is that every person that I encounter, the numbers are brought up in AEW. There's so many people to focus on, but when you really drill it down, it's like, okay, well, who would you get rid of? And I've seen like a lot of reaction, like Stu Grayson. Listen, this guy's a great wrestler. I'm not going to argue that for a second, but you have to make these hard choices. We can't both argue that there's way too many people versus television time and then state like when all these deals come up that, oh, you can't let this person go. You can't let that person go. These are hard decisions that you have to make. And I think there's certainly a credit that they're at least allowing these contracts to run their course. They're not cutting people. But at the same time, like, we can't just continually have this broken record about this dearth, this incredible list of talent that they have and so many numbers, and then look at like a choice like this that they can't come to an agreement. And like a Stu Grayson, like that's kind of the litmus test that it becomes of when these deals come up. Is this someone that is worth giving a new contract to or giving a raise to versus all the other names that are coming in and that are available on the open market?
Yeah, and we should specify. I don't know if Tony Khan is actively saying, "Well, I want to get rid of the Dark Order." He's not. I think he wants to clearly keep this guy around. But how much of a negotiation room are you going to have for somebody like a Stu Grayson when you're also trying to hold out for X amount of free agents that are out there that might make a bigger difference to your bottom line? It's unfortunate. We have no idea how much these people are making, but certainly you look at what the performance has been of a Stu Grayson. He delivers every single time. Really steals a match every single time. So
Him and Uno are a great team. I think that, I don't look at many of these choices coming down to ability. Hardly.
No.
It's just a case of like, we have so much. It's just a wealth of talent. And again, once this next set of television negotiations go down, I would definitely recommend this week's WrestleNomics, where Brandon does quite a breakdown of his own estimates of the potential upgrade that both WWE and AEW could get. And if his estimate is anywhere in the ballpark of what AEW gets, it's a game changer for AEW if they get that level of increase.
Potentially, yeah. But let's maybe talk about Stu Grayson. I mean, his example is really fascinating because I think there's so many people of a similar level that'll probably find themselves in similar situations in the months to come. If you're Stu Grayson, you're not happy with what they're offering you at AEW, what are your other options? Where can you see him?
I would say I would have a bit more comfort than I did 6 months ago, where so many areas of the world were still shut down, or at least not open to American or Canadian talent going over to. I would say that that's lessening now, but still not a guarantee that I can get work going overseas, going to Japan, going to Mexico. The independents, I think, are slowly rehabilitating themselves from the pandemic, but it's still a transition. It's not the same system it was, and that's been, unfortunately, a big casualty of this AEW NXT fight, was the fact that NXT, in losing this fight, has totally changed its business, where NXT was an avenue for a lot of this independent talent. And it's not to say if you're an independent talent, there is no way to get into the door at NXT, but they're allowing far fewer to get into that door. That it's not, if you're an independent talent, I would say if you want to make a full-time living, AEW is your pathway. It's not looking at WWE as realistically as you were 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course, him being a part of a tag team with Evil Uno. I mean, that's another very peculiar case as well. My gut feeling is that he sticks around. At least maybe the two sides kind of come to some sort of agreement that works out for both of them. But
which is possible. They could come to
possible.
some sort of a resolution out of all of this if there's a lot of reaction to Stu Grayson. It does seem like there has been a lot more here. With Joey Janela, it was sort of out there for months of when his contract was coming due and the idea that it wouldn't be renewed. With Grayson, it'll just be interesting to see, because I think a lot of people have a lot of respect for this guy's talent. He's in a semi-featured group. I'm not going to say Dark Order is, a major part of AEW programming, but I personally thought that they would have a bigger role by this point.
Obviously after the Brody thing, that was probably when the most attention was put on them. But since then, they've really just kind of been there to serve as people for, Hangman Page's opponents to beat en route to a championship match. But I think we all agree that the roles for all the Dark Order members can be bigger. But of course, this is also not taking into account the big role that they play on BTE, of which Stu Grayson was a big part of. So I think audiences are probably sad, for the potential loss of that. And again, for AEW as a whole now, we're going to have to part ways with maybe some of your crowd cult favorites in the weeks and months to come. So, yeah, we'll see what happens with them.
Ratings on Friday night were not pretty, because SmackDown and AEW got hit very hard, not just by the NBA playoffs, but also the second night of the NFL draft. So ESPN dominated the night. They had the top 5 cable positions on the charts, and 7 of the top 10 programs on cable Friday night. Just monstrous numbers. So the NBA game did a 1.2 in the 18-49 demo. This for the game between Memphis and Minnesota. The fact that the NBA is doing this level of numbers for the first round is insane. I can't imagine what the numbers are going to grow to once we get into the deeper rounds of the playoffs. And in Canada, The NHL playoffs began on Monday, and with a national presence like the Toronto Maple Leafs in the first round, like Sportsnet is expecting around 3 million viewers per Leafs game in the playoffs. That's on top of baseball, on top of NBA playoffs. So I would say in both countries, like the sports competition is exceptionally intense this year as compared to the past few. So I only see these NBA numbers growing bigger. But what that meant for SmackDown was that they did 1,953,000 viewers. So in overall viewers, it was basically a wash from last week, not a big decrease at all. However, in the demo, they fell to a 0.38. 490,000 viewers, down 20%. And this would be their lowest 18 to 49 demo, among their lowest in the history of the show. It is their lowest on Fox. So they just got ravaged by the competition on Friday night. They were down 12% in 18 to 34, which isn't too bad, and down 23% among those 35 to 49. On the Rampage side of things, going against the same competition, they had 464,000 viewers, finishing 25th for the night with a 0.14 in the demo, which is down 28%. They were hit very hard there. They were hit big among men 18 to 49, which were down 29%, and 35 to 49 fell 35% this week. So in its normal time slot, this would be Rampage's lowest 18 to 49 number since the show premiered. There was one episode that aired after the NCAA basketball game back in March that didn't start till 11:45 at night. That was lower. But from a 10 till 11 time slot, this would be their lowest. And they might threaten that this Friday when the show is supposed to start at 5:30 Eastern time. And so that was the tale of Friday night. Really a case of a double whammy with both NBA and NFL draft coverage coming at them.
You know, if you're either a wrestling company right now, are you just kind of like ignoring these numbers? Like, what can you take from this set of data when you know competition is that strong?
Not ignoring it, but understanding it is what it is. Like this to me, there are times that, excuses are made and it's like, is that really just a deflection of what you're presenting? This to me, like, this is as legitimate as it comes. Like, this is going to have an impact across the board on all of these. I expect the Canadian numbers to be really hit hard. Like Raw on OLN is a write-off. I would put 0 into the OLN numbers up here in Canada because it's an unfamiliar network. And I was stunned at just how much it meant last week in terms of that audience that more were watching the replay at midnight on Sportsnet 360 than live at the time. So, I mean, I don't think these are, you can't just have throwaway shows or anything like that. But I think it's understanding at the same time that this is only the first round, and you're looking at 2 months of intense competition, and just the hope, I guess, that as the teams whittle down, that hopefully your night of the week is not affected when there's like a finals game, for instance. Like that's just going to be catastrophic for some of these episodes. So that's just the way things are, and you just hope that it doesn't impact habits, so that when the playoffs are done, you regain a lot of your audience that might be predisposed to be checking out basketball right now, or going to bed early on Friday night for qualifying on Saturday.
I was gonna say the practice sessions are airing probably somewhere, and then it's a race week this week.
I saw Lewis Hamilton on I think it was Good Morning America the other day.
Oh, okay. Yes, it's in Miami, so American press. You're probably going to see a lot of.
So that is happening this week with the Miami Grand Prix. Dark Side of the Ring. Let us chat about this. So it was reported in the Observer last week. This comes from the Observer that even though Dark Side of the Ring was the most popular show in the history of the station, it was not renewed for a 4th season, and goes on to talk about the last season. And this ties in with like the Tales of the Territories show that is in development that Jim Ross had talked about. And if you look today, Gerald Briscoe actually just posted a photo of a round table, looks to be about championship wrestling from Florida with Kevin Sullivan and Steve Kern and others. And that's they have the slate in front of them, Tales of the Territories. So it looks like they are in the midst of filming that. So Vice TV, and I reached out to Vice TV asking for clarification on the 4th season. They did not get back to me, but they did issue this tweet on Monday around 5:30 Eastern, We've heard some rumors flying around about season 4 of Dark Side of the Ring. We are as committed as ever to both the series and the broader Dark Side franchise. Evan and Jason are hard at work making more content that we know our fans of the series will love. Stay tuned. So that to me was not as definitive of a statement. I had asked, specific questions about, the continuation of this series. And I don't know, like, what do you read from this statement, Way? Like, obviously there is going to be content continuing with this Territories season. The question would be, are we going to see a traditional Dark Side of the Ring type of season tackling the same stories? I don't know if I take that as definitive from this statement or not.
I certainly don't, because I think if it was returning for a 4th season, they would just simply say so. I mean, we know that Evan Husney and Jason Eisner are working on something else, as they're stating here.
Clearly, this Territory show is happening. Like, from multiple, like, they were shooting it on Monday apparently with this Gerald Briscoe tweet.
I think ultimately whether or not a Dark Side season 4 happens, I think very much falls upon them, and whether or not they want to work on it, and maybe they have a better opportunity right now doing this Dwayne Johnson vehicle. But if you're Vice, of course you want a 4th season of Dark Side of the Ring. So I don't know if this tweet simply is stating that, hey, we're open to it, but we haven't necessarily negotiated yet. We also have a lot of other Dark Side of the 90s, Dark Side of the football types of series that you guys can enjoy. Don't shut the door on it yet. And maybe it's just a bit of increased PR for some of their other shows as well.
Have you ever watched any of the spinoffs? I have not.
I have not. They don't look all that interesting to me as far as subject matter.
Which is, like, important because, like, that is the hope that you're taking a very tuned in wrestling fan that would hopefully be interested in other subjects as well. And, we will see. Like, certainly, like, they have hitched their wagon to this Dark Side brand, for lack of a better term, and have kind of, like, built the network around it. But that's the latest. So it looks like, this Territory show is a go. And I guess the rest we shall see. Then we have the latest announcement for Capital Collision that is happening on May the 14th in Washington, D.C. And it was announced Kazuchika Okada, who had been advertised for this show, he will be teaming with Trent Beretta on the show against Jay White and Hikuleo. And this will come just weeks before Okada and Jay White will have their match on June 12th at Dominion. So not like a featured like title defense or anything from Okada, but this is a show that also has Eddie Kingston and Tomohiro Ishii, Minoru Suzuki against Brody King, and Moxley and Tanahashi. So it's a pretty loaded up card for your U.S. market, and attaching Okada to it. And I guess the natural question is, does Okada do anything else while he is over here in the U.S.?
I honestly have to think a Rampage appearance or some sort of AEW appearance is in store, because the integration between AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling is so incredibly strong up and down this card. Yeah, a lot of the guys like Moxley and Brody King already had ties to New Japan before AEW, but I think with them co-promoting a show together, it only makes all the sense in the world to really start to, expose New Japan talent and the New Japan brand to your TNT audience, starting now when you have them in town. Really good to see somebody like, Trent Beretta be able to make an appearance teaming up with Okada. And this chaos, affiliation with the Best Friends isn't just something that, is one-sided. It goes both ways, and that's really cool to see. And of course, Hikuleo getting a big opportunity here, sticking around with the Bullet Club despite his brothers not being a part of the stable. What's going on there?
That's right. Yeah, look at that, a fracturing in the in the family. Yeah, this of course coincides with the Best of the Super Juniors tournament, so it would allow that leeway for an Okada to come over here for a week if they wanted, and there's a business reason to do some kind of appearance on AEW to shoot an angle or do something to set up this Forbidden Door show where you would assume that Okada's going to have a heavy presence on that pay-per-view at the end of June.
At least have Trent, show up with like a video camera and shoot something with Okada. Let's at least tease something there.
He gets to meet Orange Cassidy.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if he's going out to the West Coast. We know he's a big fan of In-N-Out. Okada is. Maybe he'll stop at a Shake Shack.
Then tonight, we've got NXT Spring Breakin. Are you ready for Spring Breakin?
In May? Is this when spring break is? I thought it was like March.
Well, we're it's a late spring break.
Okay.
In May. Yeah.
Spring breaking. All right.
We have
yeah.
Braun Breaker against Joe Gacy for the NXT title. A triple threat for the North American title with Cameron Grimes, Carmelo Hayes, and Solo Sikoa. Natalya teaming with Lash Legend against Nikita Lyons and Cora Jade. And the Creeds taking on the Viking Raiders.
That is correct. Yeah. I'm excited for the Viking Raiders to be able to at least have something of, interest attached to them for the first time in a long time. And it's another big test for the Creed brothers. So I'm actually kind of looking forward to seeing those results. This is a main event that I think has probably been the weakest of Braun Breaker's run so far. But ultimately, we look at NXT as like experience points, and this is obviously the biggest test we've had for Joe Gacy so far. Maybe a big one for Braun as well to see what sort of match he can bring out of a Joe Gacy.
Yeah, and they'll be going against we got Boston and Milwaukee playing tonight at 7 Eastern, and that's followed by Golden State and the Grizzlies. So that's starting at 9:30 Eastern. So there will be back-to-back games tonight that will be going against NXT. And in Canada, the show will be streaming on Sportsnet now. It will not be on Sportsnet 360. And I would guess that's probably going to be the case given the NHL playoffs going on, that it's going to interrupt programming. I think it's the same deal for SmackDown on Friday.
Wow. Okay. So if you're a wrestling fan, you're gonna have to do some homework to find out where you can watch these shows this week.
Yes, I'm sure I will be getting tweets. So anyway, that is happening tonight. And the last thing I just want to make mention is tonight, Wai and I are going to be going back to January the 4th of 2003 to review Wrestling World. This was the titling of their Tokyo Dome show on January 4th prior to Wrestle Kingdom, featuring IWGP Heavyweight Champion Yuji Nagata defending the title against Josh Barnett, Yoshihiro Takayama and Tsuyoshi Kosaka for the vacant NWF Championship, a reunion of Satoshi Kojima and Hiroyoshi Tenzan, and the Makai Club all over this card.
Yes, Makai Club. Is Makai Club for life? What is the Makai
Obviously
Club?
not. Obviously not. We are still living life, and the Makai Club is in the recesses of most people's mind.
Yeah, I have to say, John, this is a period of New Japan Pro Wrestling that I was not watching, so many of these watches will be first-time watches. But it's a really interesting period of discussion because this is the point where MMA influence was running rampant in New Japan Pro Wrestling to the detriment, I would say, of the company and maybe, professional wrestlers within the company as a whole. We'll be talking all about it. And who are some of the names that are going to be featured on this show?
We will get to see a young 22-year-old Shinsuke Nakamura in his second professional wrestling match, and days after his fight with Daniel Gracie on the Inoki New Year's Eve card. One of, I think, the standouts on this show. There aren't a whole lot of them, including Giant Silva. We got to see Giant Silva on this show. I mean, dude, there's some bad stuff on this card.
You get to see Katsuyori Shibata in a mask as a part of this Makai Club. A young, very young, what looks to be a very young Shinya Makabe, a.k.a. Togi Makabe. So really interesting show, a really interesting period to look at, and that'll be up tonight on Rewind Away.
Yeah, a fascinating look at New Japan in 2003, and they're only going to go deeper into this presentation of quote-unquote pro wrestling.
And to find a link, of course, you can go to the show notes when the show is released, or you can go to the feedback form at forum.postwrestling.com right now and find the show if you want to watch it. We got some super chats to get to before we get out of here, John. We go first to Jared Taylor, who sends $5 of support. Thank you so much, Jared. He asks, is Stu Grayson's visa tied to his employment with AEW? How would him not resigning impact his ability to take bookings in the U.S.? Very good question.
Yeah, like for the longest time, like that was a holdup for them to go to the States. It might be, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah, we'll find out soon enough, I'm sure.
But that's always a concern for a Canadian or international talent. We saw that with the Iconics as well, leaving the WWE, is that it can impact your booking. It's not the other way around, where if you're in the U.S., you can come up to Canada, no issue, but from Canada to the U.S., it's a major headache for a lot of talents. And one that I don't quite understand, but that's the situation they have to deal with. And if you don't go about things the wrong way, it can be pretty detrimental to your career.
I mean, there are only so many promotions that seem to be able to offer that to a professional wrestler. We look at an Impact Wrestling who's been doing that.
And those companies should honestly be applauded for that, because let's be honest, if you're a promoter in the US and you're looking at two relatively similar talents in terms of what they can bring to you, one requires all this red tape to go through and the other is US based, very easy to go with less of a headache of just booking the American talent. So I think whenever these companies go to that length for a Canadian or international talent, like that should be applauded, because it is a process that instead of just snapping your fingers and booking someone that is based in the US.
We go up next to Robert Pearson, who sends a $20 super chat. Thank you so much to our friend who says, miss you guys. We should talk about LA soon. With love.
What do you want to talk about LA?
Yeah,
Los
the weather.
Angeles, I understand.
In-N-Out burger,
In and out.
perhaps?
That's correct. Yeah. That's correct.
He's referring to, of course, like I think our WrestleMania trip next year, and I don't know if it's happening, quite frankly, yet, Robert. So maybe it's something we'll have to discuss off air. All right, we go to Jake from the Windy City, who sends $5. Thank you so much for the support, Jake, as always. He says, to me, the Joe Gacy character has jumped the shark. I'm so over the spooky supernatural characters in wrestling, no matter what company it is. Yeah.
I don't know if the Joe Gacy character is all that.
Has it approached the shark?
Like, I think there was an interest like
close?
week one of where they were going, but honestly, like the character's really not gone in the direction I think many thought of, kind of being like your super woke villain, and instead it's to me just like a traditional wrestling heel that they are obviously high on to be. Getting like, look at the characters that were introduced in September and the ones that continually are in high positions. Joe Gacy is one of them. Yeah, go ahead.
So I find it really interesting that, like, of all the people that they could choose from to give Broad Breakker his next challenge, that they decided to choose Joe Gacy. Because I would argue that he is not as experienced as, like a Cameron Grimes or John might have lost his
I might break something today.
You might be spring breaking here.
I might be spring breaking this camera that I'm at my wit's end with.
It's okay, but we could still hear you. Anyway, yeah. So I mean, it almost makes me wonder: like, are they fast tracking Joe Gacy's because they have other plans for him?
It's always possible. Like, again, I'm looking at this transition in NXT that if you see a character that is working, they're going to be constantly analyzing them as main roster potential or not. And honestly, like, if I'm looking at this roster and I'm saying, like, who is likely or unlikely for the main roster, I'm filing Joe Gacy under likely.
Yeah, I would say so too.
All right. Thank you for all the super chats. That's going to wrap things up. So again, we're back tonight. PostWrestlingCafe.com. That gives you a minimum 2 bonus shows per week. This week you will get Rewind Away, MCU Later, covering the season finale of Moon Knight. Are we going to get a second season of Moon Knight? Probably.
That's one of the big debates that we'll be discussing this Thursday, live at 10 p.m. Eastern time for all Post Wrestling Cafe patrons, and then immediately an archive afterwards right on the Patreon. So yeah, we'll find out. I also want to say tomorrow, right here at 1 o'clock in this post-daily news space, I will be joined, not by John Pollock, because we're going to give him some time off to work on the website and doing other things, but I will be joined instead by the newly reunited BDE, the Braden and Davey Experience. They'll be joining me, both of them together, live here at 1 o'clock Eastern on the post-daily news. So join us for that.
All right, we'll check that out on Wednesday. And then back Wednesday night for Rewind to Dynamite. You can get all of your news up at postwrestling.com, postwrestlingcafe.com for all of our cafe content. And that's going to wrap it up. So thank you for tuning in to the Post Daily News Show.